Hello students, in today's session I am going to teach you about the pivot table, and you know that the pivot table is used for the data analysis. So this is the good way to analyze any data. Actually, pivot table is summarize all the data from the existing table, because the large scales of data we cannot analyze easily. So with the help of the pivot table we can summarize our data. So how you can create the pivot table? Actually, pivot table, if you want to create, so you have to use two methods, and these methods are pivot and pivot table. So we already learned about the pivot, how to create the pivot table, but we do not know how to create it. So let's start how to create into Jupyter. Clear? So first you should have a data, and that data you have to create into the data frame form, and that data frame we will convert into the pivot table form. So first we create a simple data, and then that data we will convert into the data frame form. So like we already learned into the example, we have that data. Clear? So this you see here, this is our data, and that data first we convert into the data frame form, and this data frame converted into the pivot table. So we have that data, and this data we will create into the pandas. So let's start to creating that data. So we have, first you have to what, import pandas as pd. Okay, this is first statement, and into this we importing the pandas library. Clear? Because the how you can create the data frame, so you have to use the pandas library. Clear? And now here I am creating a class 12th record. So the object name is class 12. This is the identifier. So this identifier I created, that is a class 12, and now its row and column I will assign. So my first column is name. What? Name. This is my first column, and assign the list of that column. So my first name is what? Pratibha. This is first name. Now the second name is Ritika. Third name Soumya, and next name is Aryan. That list I have provided into it. Now separate this with help of the comma separator. My next column is subject. Okay, this column I have, and provide the list. So list of subject is, I have CS, physics, then chemistry, then maths. Any subject you can assign here. Okay, so this is the list of subjects, and next column is score. Okay, so this is the score, and assign the list of score. Score is 99, 87, 88, and 67, like this. This is the score of students. So because I have 4 name 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why I assign the 4 subject and score also for the 4 students. Now the last column is grade. So grade list you also provide. So grade list is like A1, then separate with comma, and A2. According to the your grade, you can assign the grade. Yeah, according your score, you will assign the grade. A2 and second is also A2, and last grade you can assign is B grade. Okay. Okay. So this list has been generated, and now you can enter. So I have 4 column into the class 12th: name, subject, score and grade with 4 students. Clear? This is the 4 students record. And now this list, this dictionary is convert into the data frame form. So you have to convert this list first into the data frame form. So any identifier you can assign df. This is indicate the data frame. Clear? So df, how you can convert that list into the data frame form? So simple, you have to use the pandas library pd with object name pd dot to convert any dictionary, any data into data frame form. So you have to call data frame method. So data frame method I am calling, and then pass the list or dictionary that you want to convert into the data frame. So I want to convert the class 12 record should be converted into the data frame form. Okay. So this, with this method, it convert into the data frame. Now if you want to see this record into the data frame form, so call the print method and pass the df and run this code. Wait for a few minutes because it will execute it. Okay, so you see here how many column we have assigned. So we have 4 column: name, subject, score, grade, and last is grade. Okay, so you have name, subject, score and grade. This is 4 column, and the name is Pratibha Ritika Soumya Arya. You can see here this all subject with subject, score and grade. Clear? So this data frame has been created. So now the main object of us, this table convert into the pivot table because we want to analyze some records. So according to the analysis, you can summarize your data frame. So how you can convert this data frame into the pivot table? So now see. So look at here, like I want to create a pivot table with index name and column subject and its value is score. Clear? Because in whenever you want to create your pivot table, so you have to pass 3 arguments. So these 3 arguments are what? Index, then column, and then value. Index, column and value. These 3 arguments are very important whenever you create a pivot table. So I want to create a pivot table. So first you have to create a identifier like data frame. So PV is my pivot table identifier, PV. Clear? Any username you can assign here. So PV is my pivot table identifier, and you want to convert a data frame into pivot. So you data frame you have df, this data frame, clear? You see here df is your data frame, so you call the df and dot operator. And how you can convert into pivot? So simple, you have to call the pivot method. So this method we call here. Now three arguments. So first argument is you have index. So which column you want as a index? So which column should be work as a index? So you see here, this is your index of data frame 0, 1, 2, 3. But into the pivot table, according to user requirement, he convert any column into index form. Clear? So I want to convert the name as a index. So name work as a index. So I will pass here name, and then what? Column. Which column only you want to need? Means which value where which column you want to work as a column into the pivot table. Only that record will be comes into the pivot table. So from this data frame, I want to column is subject. Okay, this subject only I want to take is a work as a column like this. So into the data frame you have column name, subject, score and grade. But into the pivot table I want to work all the subject will be work as a column. So assign the column. So which column you want to work as a column into the pivot table? So I want to create a subject will be become column for pivot table. Now the last values. So this is the last argument of our pivot table. So value, only which value you want to analysis in your record, because into data frame have many value, clear? But only you want to select which value should be come into your pivot table. So I want to use only the score should be come in my pivot table. So I will assign the score column here. Okay. So the score column will be treated as a value into the pivot table. Now execute it. So how you can execute? So you call the print method and use the pv, and now run this program. So students, you can see here this is our subjects, clear? So according to the index and subject you can see this is your record. So it is only executing the value of score. You see the score of value is 99, 87, 88 and 67. So only those record are you can see here, clear? So this record is used as a values. And now you can see here is the index is name. So name become in pivot table as an index. So Aryan, Pratibha, Ritika, Soumya is become the index of pivot table, and the columns are subject. So these subjects become column for that pivot table. CS, chemistry, maths and physics. And the value of that pivot table is score. So you see here the Aryan have no any CS value. So that's why here you see NaN, that is none. Clear? This key is used as to indicate for the none value. So here is no any value of CS. Like you can see chemistry it have no any, so none is here, and only the maths value are assigned in for the RN. So you see here the RN have 67 only for math subject. So that's why it's showing the 67, and physics also have no any value. So there you see none, as it is for the other value. So this is the way of creating a pivot table. So you can create any table as a pivot, clear, from your data frame. Like now you can also convert a pivot table for the grade value, clear. If you want to create a pivot table for the grade, clear, so you can also do this. Simple, you once again use the any identifier name like PV df data frame, and I want to create a pivot table. So here I assign the pivot, and index is, I want to keep same index name, treat as a index. Next parameter is columns, you can assign subject, okay, subject work as a column, and here I am change that value is, now I want to use grade. So grade is treat as a value, clear, and now execute it. So simple, you will write print and then PV. Run this. Okay, index. So you see here, this is the pivot table with grade value, clear. So only here you see the maths, CS, chemistry and physics are showing the values, because other have no any value, so that's why it is showing none, clear. So only those record have grade, only those subject have grade assigned, so it will execute. So this is the way of creating pivot table. So if you want to change the index or column, so you can also swap this, clear. If you want to convert the subject work as an index, so you can write here, and you want to index should be column, so that you can also do this. So according to your analysis you can modify your table. So actually the main concept of pivot table to analysis your record, only those record you want to access from your data frame, so you can do this. So the major work of the pivot table only for the data analysis. So with this example, I think you all understood how to create a pivot table. So first you have to create the list, and that list should be converted into the data frame, clear, and that data frame you can convert into the pivot form. So this is the way of creating a pivot table.